All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to Out of Character. I'm your host, the Faulty GM, and today we will be running a game. So this is going to be the Genesys system. For those who have heard of it, it is a system that Fantasy Flight put out. It's a generic core system thing. But what we're going to be running is in a setting that I call Slugged and the world of Belmar. And the game today is called Death at the War Conference. So joining me here today are these three lovely people. If you guys would like to briefly introduce yourselves and your characters, let's start with Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Davies. I'm going to be playing Raven. She's a human scoundrel, kind of a sneaky type. She likes to hide in the shadows and be quiet and observe from the background.
All right, Baron.
What's up, everybody? I'm Baron. I got the channel RWD Gaming. We got a lot of live plays, so come check us out if that's something you're into. Today, I'm going to be playing Sir Leon Murnifo. Is a knight, kind of de facto leader for a community that's kind of been rampaged on by the Empire. So he's out to stand up for the good fight. This is my first game of Genesys ever, so looking forward to learning how to play with you guys.
Awesome. And last but not least, Nick.
Hey, I'm Nick Delancey. I'm playing a Sevian, a disgraced Sevian who was taught some druidic magic and was able to possibly redeem himself just a little bit in his people's eyes during a prison break. And now he's working with others to hopefully tear down the Empire.
Okay, so let's get straight into it. So you were all, or let's start with what happened last time. So in recent months, word has kind of spread throughout the continent of these individuals that people call the jailbreakers. Now, these group of individuals, as hearsay, folk tales, and legends have spread, broke into a secret military base and prison in the Misty Isles, isles of which no one should be capable of passing through, but somehow they managed to do it despite the Empire's knowing. And they broke into the prison, destroyed it, and rescued the hero of the failed rebellion. Now, there are other people that were rescued there, but the hero being revived, the fact that he's not dead, has spread throughout the continent like wildfire. Everybody is talking about the hero and what he's doing. What he's doing. Where is he? What is he going to do now? Now that the hero is free, talk of rebellion and talk of sentiments against the Empire have started to raise from silence to a whisper. People in the shadows are talking about what will happen if the Empire falls, and those who are smart are not saying anything at all. But you were all chosen by the hero. You three are some of the few people, maybe just a handful, who have actually met this mysterious individual. And you three were told by the hero to lead the speaker to the conference that he has called, to get the 7 races to unify against the Empire. It is crucial to whatever the hero has plans, and although you're not privy to all that he is doing, you know that his plans involve all 7 races coming together to tear down the Empire. And whatever your beef with the Empire might be, that definitely sounds good to you. So, you guys have met with the speaker named Synis Liam. And through your movings with him, You guys have come into trouble with bandits and burglaries and all kinds of things that have left you tired and hungry and desperate, but you have all come to know each other. Raven and Drixel, you are a part of the original Jailbreakers. And although many don't know who you are, those who do look at you with some form of reverence. You have become famous figures within the rebellion. And Sir Leon, you have come to know both of them as more than just the legends that they are. Some might call them friends. You might call them close acquaintances, but that's ultimately up to you. And all three of you have gotten to know Synis Liam as more than just a speaker, but a humble person who wants freedom for everybody. When you were all hungry and starving, and he had what little food he had, he split his sharings with all three of you to make sure everyone eat an equal amount. When there was someone hungry on the street, he gave them what little money he had. Through these instances and many, many more that you've experienced along the way, you have come to know this man as a good person and someone who has the best interest of the continent in mind, and someone who isn't just looking for the benefit of humanity and looking for humanity to rise above what the Empire has shown, but the best interest for all peoples. He wants all 7 races to come together unified after the destruction of the Empire. This mindset seems to be somewhat revolutionary, as most people have never considered this kind of thing before. But the more he talks to you and the more he explains his ideology, the more it becomes reasonable. So it is with all this in mind that as you approach the mountainous trees of the Dire Woods, the place of which most sane people would never venture to travel, but happens to be the borderline where beyond the Dire Woods is where the conference is being held, that you begin to understand the benefit of working with others. Beyond you, as you travel the path leading to these mountainous trees, standing so high that some of them bleed into the clouds above you, that they begin to part specifically for you and your entourage. And as you pass through these trees and you can see the ins and outs of people moving between them, creatures that you've never seen before and that most men have never dared see or step into, you see beyond is a clearing. And in this clearing is a camp. And that camp is a mishmash of all the races that exist in this world. And all the things that Silas has told you about all the races being able to live peacefully together come together in this image. As you see that the different cultures and styles of building things, the wood, how it's bent and molded by the Abori Kai, and the living creatures that move about the campsite on these behemoth-like structures, thanks to the Scythian and their beastmen mentality, and so on and so forth. The blending of all these cultures comes together in this mishmash of things that exist here. Things that, based on who you are as a human, as a Scythian, you've never seen from the other people's perspective. And you start to see his image start to come true. Now, as you are all starting to settle in, an entourage of other individuals comes forward towards you. And it is an armed soldier in his garrison. And he introduces himself as General Desclo. And around him, his soldiers are kind of all armed to the teeth, still with gleaming, almost undented armor, which seems a little odd. And he clears his throat and says, "Oh, Silas, I'm glad that you have finally arrived. We have all been waiting patiently for your presence, and Before he continues, he takes a look at the rest of you and says, "My humble apologies. I am not aware that you were coming with such a prestigious entourage. If my informants are correct," and he looks at the two of you, Raven and Drixel, "you are what they have been calling the jailbreakers, correct?"
That's what they call us. It's a silly name, but it's what we did, so.
It is a great honor to meet you. It is because of you that, well, the morale back in Alar has risen quite greatly because of you. And Sir Leon, I have heard much about your tales of leadership and the bravery that you've displayed in your home continent, or your home country. It is a great pleasure to meet you as well. It is clear that the hero has chosen the right people to lead this party. And he looks at all of you all together, and he says, "Now, we haven't decided how we would like to do things. The Eldari insist that we get this meeting onwards, but we, as a unit, were able to convince him that we should wait for you. So, Silas, please, if you would, come with me. We will decide how to proceed." And Silas looks around, and he kind of nods apologetically and takes off. So, you guys are here at this camp with all these people. Your instructions were clear. Make sure Silas is safe, and to make sure the proceedings go as accordingly. What would you guys like to do now?
I think Sir Leon would take some time to introduce himself to kind of the various faction leaders, if you will. Like, hello, I'm Sir Leon. I come from such and such town.
Cool.
Escort of the speaker.
Cool. Karen, what about you?
Definitely watching Silas as he's being led away, and maybe following a little bit behind them. I'm not leaving too far away from Sir Leon, but I want to be in range, and I just want to see where they're taking them. Keep an eye on them.
All right.
Sure things are out.
So you are following behind Silas. Drixel, what are you doing?
So Drixel's still a little bit uncomfortable with like the newfound fame and whatnot, so he's actually kind of just sticking by Raven and trying not like outwardly avoiding people, but he's a little offish about anyone. Like he's wary of like the eyes on him from people that do recognize him and Raven.
Sure. Sir Leon, how are you identifying individuals of great importance?
Just by kind of the company they keep. If there's someone that's kind of like the center of attention, charismatically, like approaching them, or maybe even the more mysterious, aloof people that are sitting by themselves. Just, I guess I may have said wrong when I say the leaders. I mean everyone, really. I'm trying to just get a feel for the camp in general, who lives there, what to look out for, getting those preliminary vibes of everyone.
Okay. So are you more just walking around, kind of getting a feel for the land?
Yep. If I could kind of equate it to anything, it's like when you're gathering your materials for a project or something. I'm just labeling my materials, seeing what's at hand, what we're doing.
So as you walk around, you find that there are a bunch of minor factions, groups that, similar to your groups, maybe have like 15 people in them. They're very small in comparison to the major. They're not a country or anything like that. And you find that there are big players here amongst the smaller groups who have kind of managed to So much of the mismatch, I should say, where you find the humans sitting next to the Eldari and the Eldari sitting next to, the Teradels and things that like would never really happen in outside of this weird place that has come to exist. Those are the smaller factions that can't really stake out anything and have kind of claimed whatever place that they can sit themselves. They have pretty much been they've been put to such a degree that they don't care who they sit next to. If you're someone who's against the Empire, you're the same to them. The bigger groups, the people who come from places where they don't necessarily have to fight against the Empire to such a degree as the smaller groups do, they have staked out somewhat of a segregated place. So you'll see a heavily armed, fortified location for the Eldari, which is just Eldari troops and people. Same thing with the Abori Kai, the Abori Kai don't necessarily have a campsite. This is kind of their home. So you can see them kind of looking over everything. People you maybe assume to be children, it's hard to see as they don't necessarily have faces. It's mostly just these wooden masks that have kind of like a facial structure to them, almost like they're mimicking what they see in you, but not truly understanding what it is. And they kind of are clinging to the branches of these mountainous trees that are around you, and kind of leaning and looking and seeing what's happening, but not necessarily engaging with anyone. And you see like a group of Teradels. And the interesting thing about them is that they have armor on. And you've never seen a Teradel who has armor, let alone has a weapon. And these all look grizzled in a way that Teradels just don't look. Typically, they're somewhat cute and they seem somewhat harmless. But these look like if you tried to interact with them, they might actually attempt to kill you. So that's a little strange. And oddly enough, there seems to be two separate Scythian camps, each with two different color banners. And although the Scythians are actually united in a similar way that the human faction is under one empire, it seems like these are two different houses that are being represented here today. Let's see. There are two major factions of humans that are here as well. So I guess my question would be, would you have any connection to any of the major players in this group? Or would you like to use a story point?
I'm going to actually use a story point.
Ooh.
To add something to the game, if I may.
Go for it,
one of these, I'm sorry, the rock people.
The Teradels?
Yes, scanning this bunch, I recognize one as a Teradel that I had somehow met in my I'm a fairly old guy. I guess maybe 50, so I've journeyed a little bit outside my town, and at some point I met this Teradel, and there was a mutual, I wouldn't say friendship, but benefit from our acquaintance. So I see him.
Cool.
And
what's his name?
What are some typical Teradel names?
I have no idea. Make one up.
This is actually like a couple of shifts in a rock that like clink together. So like my character tries to mimic that by like clicking his tongue, and I'm sure this would probably seem comical to them, but it's my best attempt at speaking how they would say their names.
Cool. Well, let's just say you call him Click Clack for short, like just to shorten it. So You find your old companion Click-Clack in this troop. Now, the last time that you saw him, was this before the Empire had came about, or was this afterwards?
This was afterwards, but before my community had their run-in with the Empire. So, like the slight sliver in between the Empire and the fall of my community. So,
Let's see. So before you had seen, Click-Clack, he was just a wandering Teradel, and that was odd at the time. But now he's more grizzled. The rocks that he's that have form his physical being have chips on them that remind you of scars and deep gashes carved into them from what you assume to be battle. This individual, you know him from a very specific thing about him, maybe the color of his eyes or the way he holds himself, but he seems different. And as he sees you, he kind of lights up in a way and comes alive and comes over to you and he says, "Sir Leon, wow, it's been so long. Much has happened." And he kind of looks you over and says, "Yes, much has happened indeed."
And I would like kneel down so I'm more face level with him. Actually, not like the memes where the guy's like squatting down. I'm not doing that. I'm like actually like kneel down and like rest my hand on his shoulder, and it's like I see in these long years you have, and like kind of acknowledging the chips and pockmarks in the stone. Seems you've been busy, my friend.
Yes. After our meeting, I was, let's say I had my own fair of hardships, but in so doing, and he kind of puts his hands out and kind of gestures to those around him, I found a brotherhood of which I belong to. And he looks around and he kind of smiles and he says, "Yes, the Deep Dwellers is a good caste. I never thought I would belong to a caste again since I ran from the Hive Queen, but here I am, fellow brothers in arms. And now, here you are. It seems that you are here for the same goal, yes? To bring down the immortal Emperor?"
Our quest is the very same.
Good. Well, maybe after we all get together and kill this immortal bastard, you can help us bring down the Hive Queen.
And like a slight smirk would span Leon's face. I could find no greater cause to pursue after.
And you hear some of the other Teradel speaking in that manner of which you cannot necessarily replicate, with the grinding of stones and the clicking of whistles and things like that. And he turns to you and says, "Well, my friend, it appears that I am being called. Duty calls. There is much to be prepared for before everything starts, I guess. But we shall definitely drink." And he waves off to you and heads back.
With that, farewell. And I will turn and kind of scan the crowd for my two companions.
Yes. And you find them. Raven and Drixel. You follow you follow Cyrus in the other group, and as he walks with Disclo, you find that the entourage has kind of come together with about 9 other individuals, well, not 9 other, but a group of about 9 people who seem to be of great importance, as surrounding you at this point is your almost own entourage of people following their entourage. So just like you find yourself surrounded by Scythian, like massive Scythian guards. And the thing to note about these guards is that they are not male guards. these are female Scythian guards. So whoever these individuals are, which are other female Scythians, to have an entire entourage of female Scythians in this world means that you are of the utmost importance, as female Scythians are the most powerful amongst their race. And you have others like the Eldari. You have Teradel, who is kind of in front of the group, but noticing that the Teradel that is amongst them does not seem to be treated like a lesser being, as most Teradels often are. He is given the correct amount of space between him and everyone else, and when he talks, those around him listen to him. And so on and so forth, of the humans, the Abori Kai, the Eldari, the Afira, representatives of all the major factions and races seem to have come together. And they have formed this small group, and they stop in front of this big tent. So this tent is bigger than most of the others, as it is, I don't know the best way to put this, but it's almost as if it was made of multiple tents put together and could house a large group of individuals in it. So as they stop there, they kind of turn to look at everyone, and you see them all kind of wrapped in this intense conversation. What are you guys doing at this point? Drixel and Raven.
I'm going to be scanning the entourage that's following the entourage, if you know what I mean. Just kind of seeing who's all in this group that's kind of following all of us. Seeing if there's any shadier type of people.
Traitor type of people? Anybody suspicious?
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Drixel?
As a Scythian entourage passes by, Drixel, I guess they're behind us, but he acknowledges them with the proper respect due. Do I recognize, would I know either of these houses by the colors?
Yes. So as a Scythian, you would probably know the colors, and everybody else would assume that these are Scythian houses, but you know that Scythians don't necessarily reflect their houses like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what this is that whenever Scythians send out negotiations, they send out someone called the Speaker, who speaks as if she is the Empress herself, and another called the Seer, who makes sure that the Speaker speaks for the Empress. So the Seer is pretty much the person that keeps the Speaker in line, and vice versa.
Okay.
So they're almost like, it's almost like they're two factions working against each other to make sure that they find balance in the middle. So the Speaker should not speak. Pretty much, the Seer is just there to make sure that the Speaker has the best interests of Scythians in mind. And if anything is to go out of balance, the Seer is to report directly to the Empress to tell her what happened.
Okay. And so each color is like part of that faction then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But you also know that the people who are chosen to be speakers are high matriarchs, meaning that they are probably the most powerful Scythians outside of the Empress herself. These are like almost, I guess you would call them like, nobles in the Scythian Empire. Right. So they're like high-born nobles that have a lot of political influence and power.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, other than, giving them the proper respect, I'd probably just be keeping like an eye out, kind of glowering a little bit as we walk, just to, detract any any
Make sure you glower correctly.
Right.
All right. So Raven, you said that you were looking around. Why don't you give me a vigilance check?
What difficulty? Or just
I'm gonna say no difficulty. I just want to see how good you do.
1 success with 2 advantage.
Cool. So the things that you spot right out of the bat. Most of these people, pretty much anybody who's not human that you haven't spent a lot of, like, whatever culture you haven't spent a lot of time with, it's hard to see if they're being suspicious or not. Because you're not sure if it's normal for the Abori Kai to walk the way they do. Like, whenever they walk, they kind of look like they just look awkward. It's possible that they're being suspicious, but it's possible that they're just weird. And that kind of goes for most of the other races. It's hard to pen down their mannerisms as being suspicious or just a part of whatever culture it seems to be, as many of them kind of display a similar bit of similar mannerisms within their group. So most of them seem to be operating accordingly for whatever their customs happen to be. But for the humans, you notice that some of the humans don't have the same colors as the others in that same group. So some of the humans are representing the pink and white colors of the Alar Empire or the Alar Kingdom. But within them are individuals that have gray patches on them. And these gray patches are typically symbols of mercenaries. Mercenaries typically wear gray patches to show that they're a part of that group. But it's really odd that the Alar Empire would hire mercenaries to such an important event. But that's probably the most suspicious thing that you found in this gathering. Although you did notice something else. When you guys rescued people, you happened to meet a very specific Antithan named Felro. And you notice that he is actually in the entourage with the other very important people. And that further back with you are other Antithans. But it's not sure if they're supposed to be with Felro. And if they are, does that make him important? That could be suspicious in its own way. Since from what you know of Felro, he is a very suspicious individual. But yeah, that's pretty much what you learn. And as you guys are kind of standing here, Sir Leon, that's kind of where you see the entourage kind of stop at and your friends kind of hanging back a little bit.
I would definitely point out to Drixel, kind of nudge him and make sure he notices the Antithans.
Sorry, say that again.
I would kind of nudge Drixel and make sure that I know that he knows the Antithans are here.
Yeah, I'd glance up and give you like a quick acknowledgement and try not to make too much eye contact. I'd imagine that when I saw Felro specifically, he probably happened to look up right as I did. I don't want to make a story point for that, but I'd imagine he's the type to have already been aware of me.
Sorry, you're saying that Felro is aware of you guys?
Yeah, I'd imagine I'd imagine he would have noticed me. He seems like the type, so I feel like I would have tried to look really quickly at him, but then he would just have noticed me.
So I would say more that you assume Felro knows that you're there, but
Right.
he is pretty much in discussion with everybody else and seems to be, and that's the other thing, is that while you guys are looking at him, just like with the Pterodels or things like that, what you assume that he's a suspicious individual and should probably be treated with a handful of caution and, you know, skepticism. People seem to be taking him seriously.
Right.
What he has to say is confronted with more words and not necessarily vitriol. It doesn't seem like what he says sparks outrage or anything like that. People are nodding when he says things and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So, Sir Leon, do you make your way over to them?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be paying as close attention to like the contents of this room, having kind of like my reacquaintance with an old friend. You know, I approach like this conference will do very good things for the continent. You know, this is probably the first time I've actually been enthused about this whole project in like a happy way rather than like an angry way.
Yeah.
So maybe even like coming up and patting Raven on the shoulder, like as she's kind of gazing around the room and bringing her back to what's in front of her.
Sorry, say that again. What's in front of Raven?
No, just kind of like she said she was like scanning the room for suspicious people. I'm thinking like my slap on the back is kind of what brings her to, you know, brings us back.
Cool. So yeah, you guys are all there. You guys see Felro. Raven, do you do you tell Sir Leon about Felro at all?
No, at this point, I don't, because Raven doesn't really know too much about Felro, just that he was there at the jailbreak, because she didn't really have too many dealings with him at the time. So it was, so it's not really her place to say anything to Sir Leon, because she doesn't really know the whole story. She's just know he was a import.
Cool. So you guys kind of stay like that for a few minutes until the kind of party breaks. The party in front of you breaks apart, and Silas kind of, and as they break apart, the party around you breaks apart, and everybody goes with their respective leader. And as Silas comes back to you, you can see him like visibly white sweat from his forehead, and he says, "Well, that was informative, but it seems that we have put off the inevitable just for a little bit. I've decided that we're going to have our first conversation later on tonight, or depending on how things go, tomorrow morning. And we will start the 3-day convention then. But tonight, what we will do is we will celebrate the gathering of all these individuals with food and alcohol, and hopefully that will give me a better response for tomorrow. But I hope you are all doing okay." And he kind of looks at you all to check to make sure you guys are handling yourselves correctly. But let's go to our tents, tire for the night. I leave you all to do whatever it is that you have to do. But feel free to enjoy the celebration as much as possible. I'm pretty sure everybody has brought something. Cedians always bring some weird meat. But yeah, enjoy yourselves tonight. Tomorrow, the real work begins. And he starts to head off towards where he thinks probably is where his tent is. So what do you guys do?
So Raven is a little torn. Her duty and her sense of paranoia is telling her she should be going with Silas, but he's just dismissed her. So she turns to look to Sir Leon for a little bit of a guidance in this case.
Perhaps it would be beneficial for us to become more acquainted with other leaders of the groups here. We maybe even see what this Felro character is up to.
Yeah. Do you guys just follow Sir Leon's lead?
Raven definitely would at this point.
What about you, Drixel?
I'd go with him, and I'd just throw a caution and say he's not one to be trifled with. Don't agree to anything you're not 100% sure of.
Very well. Is there anything else you can tell me of this seedy individual?
I wish there was. He has power and influence, and it's been unclear up to this point where or how or what it is, that power. I do know he has a lot of information, but it comes at a high cost.
And kind of like staring off into the distance towards this Felro character. Oh, I see. Well, perhaps we would do best to keep an eye on him for the duration.
Agreed.
So, Sir Leon, the things that you might know just off the top of your head about Antiethans is that although their society is a very free-based society, they are known to be necromancers. And it's one of the reasons why people kind of mistrust them, other than the fact that most people who know Antiethans think that they're spies and assassins. But the big thing about them is that they operate under these things called life contracts. And what these life contracts mean is that if you don't complete the contract before, the terms and conditions, and you die before that, they resurrect you and force you to continue working for them until whatever the contract states. That gives them kind of a sour taste than most other people's viewpoint, but to most Antiethans, it just makes the most sense. Why should I charge your family for the loan that you take off when I can just raise you back from the dead and have you continue to pay off the loan? So to them, it's like the most sensible thing. Yeah, going forward. So are you guys going to confront Felro, or will you guys go talk to some other individuals?
Probably won't confront Felro, but I'm open to suggestions on who the party wants to go talk to.
I would offer that I should probably try to get some insight on the attitude of the two factions of Scythians. I don't know. Are there any male Scythians around? Like, is there like a side camp with them, or is it just females?
Yeah, there's like a small camp of male mercenary Scythians.
Okay, and that would probably strike me as like a cautious move in case there's violence, right? Like, because they're kind of cannon fodder, pretty much.
Well, so this is actually really important. The male there are no such thing as mercenary Scythians. The fact that there is a camp of mercenary Scythians means that they are pretty much rebels to the Scythian Empire. So they are not a part of that faction that you saw. So the two houses, they have like maybe a handful of female Scythian guards, which is pretty much all they need. That's pretty much an army that they brought with them.
Right. Yeah.
But this other group is with the cluster of small factions.
So they're all right. So they're more like me than the standard Scythians anyway. Are there any females in that group, or is it all males?
All males.
Okay. I would, yeah. I mean, I'd tell the group, like, I don't know how good of an idea it would be. Well, actually, probably wouldn't be the worst idea. Raven helps save some of them if we went to speak with them. Not necessarily to go directly to the seer or whatever, but like just to get an idea of the attitude, if at all possible.
Cool. So you would like to go to the Scythians. Raven, what would you like to do?
Yeah, I agree with Drixel that I think it's at least prudent to maybe go introduce ourselves to them and see, acknowledge their presence.
Okay. And Sir Leon, so that was their suggestion, to go to the Scythian camp and introduce yourselves to them.
Onward. Let us go.
Cool. So as you guys march towards the major Scythian camps, you see closer up that one camp is kind of bathed in red. And Drixel, you'll know that in their red insignias is a red eye, which is clearly the seers. And on the other camp is bathed in blue. And on it is a mouth with a tongue extended, and that is the speaker's camp. So which camp would you guys like to go to?
The seer.
Okay.
I don't know if it makes a whole lot of difference in one or the other.
It probably does. I'm trying to. I mean, I'd imagine the speaker would be the one, like, the way I'm picturing it from the description is the seer's like one step removed from the Empress, and the speaker is too, but is like still not on the level of the seer, it seems like. Is that accurate, John?
So the seer more or less has the ear of the Empress.
Right.
But the speaker has the trust of the Empress.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably want either one, I guess, then, if that's the case. So we'll go with the seer, because Leon suggested it.
Okay. So, as you guys approach, you are stopped by the guard stationed in front of the tent.
I stop the appropriate distance away. I don't just approach.
So you, I guess you stop in front of the tent?
Yeah.
So why don't you guys tell me how you approach them? Let's go this way. I won't assume how you approach. You tell me how you guys approach and what you do.
I think Leon. Oh, go ahead.
I would say probably with me in front of the group. Only slightly, like just as a like, hey, like I'm coming and they're with me type thing. And I would know, where it's a camp of all females, that, not to approach too close or to look at them directly. And, I'd approach appropriately and wait for them to speak to me.
Yeah, and Raven would, though maybe slightly behind Drixel, she would be off to the side, so it doesn't look like she's following him necessarily, but on his level, or like his compatriot kind of thing. So that, because she knows she's female, and the last time she had dealings with him, they didn't mind talking to her because of that.
Right.
All right. Sir Leon, what about you?
I'm just kind of following the leader at this point. I don't think Sir Leon has had an outstanding amount of interaction with the Scythians. Drixel is probably the most communication with a single Scythian that I've ever had. So I'm kind of just observing customs and proper social manners, I guess.
Okay.
Not to offend anyone or anything.
Cool. So you guys do all the right things. And the Scythian guard, she kind of peers down at you. And although you can't see her looking at you, Drixel, she kind of scrutinizes you and goes over. Do you have any weapons on you at all?
No. Well, I mean, yeah, I do. I have a couple like small knives and stuff, but I wouldn't like. They're not really concealed. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I don't have my hands anywhere near them.
Yep. So what they do, the guards look at you all and they take their halberds and they stab them into the earth and kind of move to the side. And as a Scythian, it's almost a disrespectful thing that they just did, because they're pretty much telling you that they don't see you, any of you, as a threat at all. They don't need their weapons to kill you, and they're giving you free reign. So they've just kind of moved aside.
Okay. And I'd turn and nod to Leon and and Raven and go into the camp a bit.
Okay. As you guys continue inwards, you'll see that like the Scythian, like all the women kind of turn to look at you as you walk in, their eyes like almost locked onto you, scrutinizing every single movement you make. And just like the guards, it seems like every time they look at you, they stab their weapons into the ground in acknowledgement of how weak you are. And eventually you make your way in front of the tent. Do you guys go inside or do you stay out and wait for the seer to come to you?
Oh man. I don't know if I should know what I should do or not.
Have you ever met a seer before?
No.
Then no.
Right.
Raven's indecision is she does not know what to do at this point. She's never been in this position before, so her sense of caution would be to wait. She's not going to approach any further until she knows whether or not it's appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I'd kind of glance around, and it might even be obvious to the other two now that I'm not entirely sure what to do. Because I don't like he's actually having the internal struggle of like, do I like, would it be disrespectful to make her come to me, or do I come in unannounced? Like, there's nobody there to announce me or us. Now, normally, like the interaction between males and females, like, would it be bad for a male to like initiate a conversation with a female, like at all?
It depends.
Or is it more of a like you speak when you're spoken to type thing?
It's mostly like a speak when you're spoken to kind of thing. But it depends on the female. And it also depends on your position on the battlefield.
Right. Which mine's not very high. or non-existent, actually.
Very true.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd look at Raven now because like even like out of instinct, like, all right, there's a female here. What do I do? And see her waiting, so I'll wait.
That's funny. So Raven and Sir Leon, what do you guys do?
I'm looking at Drixel, who's looking at me, and I'm realizing neither of us know what we're doing, and so I'm waiting.
Okay. Sir Leon, what are you doing?
I think Sir Leon totally missed that social cue. So he kind of like just steps past them in an attempt to confront this person, kind of going totally against what they just did.
Cool. So you walk into the tent and there's no one there. And as soon as you walk inside, Raven and Drixel, you can hear the snickering of all the Cedians around you as they kind of mock you. And one of them kind of steps up and she kind of looks at you, Drixel, and she says, "The sea is not here." What is it that you want?
I came only to pay my respects and and announce myself. Basically, I know I'm not here as part of the entourage, but I thought it improper to not introduce myself.
And she kind of like sneers a little bit, but also there's like a mirth in the way she's looking at you, and she says, "Oh, you thought to introduce yourself. How honest of you. Who are you to introduce yourself to the seer? Are you very important?"
I wish I could say I was.
Oh, so you are insignificant then. So why waste her time with your name?
I have the reason that I thought to introduce myself as I am here not as a mercenary as the others, but as having been able to say I managed to help 4 females escape from the Misty Isles, and
Oh, so you're here to
while
brag then. You come to confront the seer to brag about your accomplishments. Is that it?
like he's like so frustrated because he knows like how insignificant he really is to them, and he says, well, it was not my intention to brag. I only came to get a feel of where we stand with the Scythian Empire, perhaps before the talks.
Oh? Well, let me be the first to tell you, Wormling. You stand where you are, insignificant and not mentioned. I hope that is enough for you. But don't worry, I will tell the seer when she arrives that a Wormling came to tell her of his great accomplishments. I'll pass the word on to her. She'll probably find it quite amusing.
I think at this point, Sir Leon kind of has exited the tent and, well, now that isn't very hospitable in the terms of the convention. Aren't we here to come together rather than drag ourselves apart?
Drixel's eyes widen.
And you hear the others kind of like snicker a little bit more, and the woman turns to you and she kind of looks you over. So Sir Leon, just to give you kind of a better like image of what these women look like, I'd say the tallest human is about like 7 foot, but these women stand at around like 8 or 9 feet tall. They're kind of slender, but also extremely muscular. And from all that you've known growing up with the horror stories of Cedians, you know that a Scythian female is probably the most terrifying creature in existence. Few things notwithstanding. But as she stands over you, she has, like, again, an entertained smile, not necessarily angry just yet. But she says, "Ooh, wormling, you have brought a pet, and it speaks so politely. Come, pet, what do you wish to share? What accomplishments do you wish to tell to the seer? Yes? Do you wish to prove how insignificant you are as well?"
For you see, I have nothing to prove except for the honor of my people to this cause against the Emperor. If that is not worthy in your eyes or your seers, that is what you would say is insignificant to me.
Oh, I see. So you are here to tell the seer that you wish to fight the Empire. Congratulations. I will pass that along. I will tell her that some human wishes to fight the Empire and that some wormling has accomplished things. And she looks at you, Raven, and says, "You human, you are a female. You must be of great importance to your people. What do you wish for me to pass along to my seer?"
I wish her good well and hope that she finds herself in good health and that these meetings go well for all of us.
Well wishes and intentions. I will pass all of these trifles along to my seer. She will have quite the laugh when she returns. Now, if you would please remove yourselves from our estate.
And yeah, with that, I'd kind of turn tail and go before it got out of hand. And I'd like kind of like suggest to like hurry to the other two.
Oh yeah, Raven is walking. She's not running because that would, show even more that how insignificant and worm-like we are. But she's definitely picked up her pace a little bit, and we were walking away.
I think Sir Leon would linger for just a moment, kind of trying to maintain eye contact before turning and following the party. I don't want to say that I'm being like arrogantly unafraid. I'm just at a point in my life where it's like, okay, if I die now, I've already had kids. It's my
What's
ability,
there for me to lose?
right? My ability to give a shit about non-important things like that are less than.
Well, I would say that went well. What would you guys like to do now?
I think Sir Leon probably even says that at the end. Well, I think that went well.
I actually would say, like, as soon as we were clear of earshot, I'd say to them, like, well, that went about as well as I thought it would.
Yeah, Raven's like, yeah, it could have been worse, I guess.
We surprisingly
you guys
enough,
could have actually met the seer.
Right? Surprisingly enough, I suppose we got a good amount of information out of them just by their attitude. I wasn't expecting a full-blown conversation. So, yeah. I kind of looked towards the speaker group and consider it for a second and shake my head. Look to the other two.
And Raven's vehemently shaking her head. No. No.
You don't even have to consult Leon on this one. He's already making his way away from these groups of people.
So what would you guys like to do before tonight? Any other conversations that you'd like to strike up?
At this point, Raven will mention to Sir Leon that she saw the gray patches on the Alarians, on some of the Alarian groups' clothing, and it's a little bit odd. Maybe we can talk to this human faction. To the less important people, maybe get a lay of how the troops, if you will, are taking this.
Perhaps they will be better conversationalists, but I agree, Raven. Let us go.
All right, Drixel, are you following them to go talk to the gray patches?
No. I'm gonna after that, I'm gonna just tell them like I need a minute, and I'm gonna kind of go off into the woods just a little. And then we can do that after their thing.
You're gonna go off into the woods, you said?
Yeah. I basically what I'm gonna do is like try to get the attention of like one of the Aborikai. And try to talk to them. But what I want to do is like go out and like cast some like small druidic magic that I learned from Aborikai. But I don't want to like make a big show of it. I just want to kind of like, just attract the attention of like one or two of them.
We will come back to that.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys are going over to General Disclose camp. So you arrive at General Disclose camp, and you see that his camp is kind of a buzz. It seems that they're using the space that he has to prepare a lot of the food that his people have brought with them. But mingled in with his soldiers and knights and the gray patches are the other humans of the Voltoran kingdom. So the Voltorans have more of a green color to their flag. And you can see General Disclo sitting across from a gentleman who is much younger than probably most of you, probably about 15 or so. So what do you guys do now?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if General Desklo actually sees this, then I would nod, but I would not be approaching him at this point. Maybe just head to one of the groups of common soldiers, if you will, and just kind of sit down with them.
Okay. And you're specifically going for disclosed soldiers, right? The guys in the pink of the ALR?
Yeah.
Cool. And Leon, you're doing the same?
I'm actually gonna. You said the general was speaking to someone.
Yep.
I'm gonna kind of like not like intrude on their conversation, but as he acknowledges me, kind of standing there to be the next to speak to him, or should he include me in the conversation? Just kind of being like, greetings.
Okay.
I'll talk to you in here in a minute.
Cool. So, Drixel, you have left the safety of the clearing, and you are now in the forest. What exactly are you doing?
So I'm basically just using like some minor magics to like grow some like ferns and whatnot, like accelerate the growth of a couple small plants. I'm just trying to like attract, like I said, like attract the attention of like one or two Aborikai without like making a big scene or anything.
Why don't you make me a vigilance check?
Okay. What's that?
With a difficulty of 2.
So that's 2 difficulty die and my willpower. Failure with 2 advantage.
Oh.
Wait. Is the X a failure or the target? The X is a
X.
failure, right? Okay,
Yeah.
then 1 advantage.
Okay. So, you are growing this this plant thing, whatever it is that you've been growing, and you're growing it and you're growing it. And you can hear movement around you, but none of them ever show up or appear to you. Oh, trying to think of a way to clue you into the advantage that you just got. So how about this? Why don't you tell me what you got from advantage?
Okay.
So you didn't notice any of them approach you, but you got some form of advantage from this either way.
Right. I mean, I guess basically what I was trying to do, and it had been a little bit of time since, you know, I spent time with them, but was I'm figuring that this was like some kind of like thing that I was taught to like signal a meeting like with one of them, or like announce my presence in one way or another. And it was at least common among the group that I trained under, if not, you know, all of Orikai. So I'd say maybe my advantage is like I realize that I did it correctly, and whether they're going to see it that way or not, like I at least like am confident that I remembered how to do the right thing.
Okay. So you stay out there for a while, but none of the Abori Kai come to meet with you. Or at least you don't notice any of them who have come to meet with you. Mm-hmm. So, Raven, you are sitting with a group of common soldiers, and as you sit down, they kind of glance over at you, and at first they kind of like turn their nose up, but then one of them really looks at you, and he says, "Oi, I think I know you. You Raven?"
Well, I am, in fact. And who are you?
And he slams his hand down. He's like, "Oh, I knew it. You're one of them jailbreakers, aren't you?" And the others kind of perk up at that. And they go, "Jailbreaker? She doesn't look like a jailbreaker to me. I thought they were like 30 big men." And he's like, No. There's one girl, right? She was the sister of that major, what's her name? And then there was a Scythian and a Fira. That's what they said.
Yeah, that story's correct. That would be me.
And they all kind of like start cheering, and they're like, "I gotta give us some more drinks for Raven. Raven, please tell us, how did the jailbreak happen? Regale us with the tale. We want to hear the truth."
And so she looks at them. She's like, "That's a long story. Well, you know what? We have a little bit of time." And she takes one of the drinks from whoever's offering it to her and starts to spin the tale of kind of what happened. She only knows really her side, and she's spinning it, putting on as much charm as she can to make it sound as she knew what she was doing at the time, because at the time, I mean, we just fell into everything at that point. But she's making it sound like, yeah, it was all intentional. All the mishaps were, you know, not mishaps, but actually planned out, and the plan was flawless.
Okay. Why don't you make me a deception check with advantage? The difficulty is going to be 2. And while you're making that, Sir Leon, you're standing there, and you see these two individuals kind of in their own conversation. And as the general sees you, uh, he kind of looks over at the younger gentleman who nods his head and stands. And all you really catch it was the end of their conversation. And the younger man says, "Well, General, we will speak again." And he walks off past you and says, "Excuse me." And as he leaves, all of the green crest kind of leave with him. So pretty much half the camp empties out as a gentleman leaves. And the general goes, "Ah, Sir Leon, it's been a pleasure meeting you. Please, take a seat. How may I be of assistance?"
And General Driscoll has obviously some renown around here. My character would have heard of him at the very least.
Yes.
And his exploits.
Disclo is renowned throughout the continent. Similar to the hero, but not to such a degree. Before the Empire rose to power, Disclo and the Alar Kingdom were able to hold out not just against the Scythians, but also against the Eldari. So they were able to hold off against two invading forces at once, mostly due to the leadership of General Disclo. It was only when the Empire came and kind of crushed all three of them that things became a very different situation. General Disclo is now he's pretty much looked to as the king since the king's death and the entire royal family was executed. But he doesn't consider himself to be a king. He still calls himself the general, and so everybody just calls him General Disclo.
So I would approach, and I'd probably be rather chipper, like, General Driscoll, your exploits are renowned, and the honor is mine. But
he'd nod to those pleasantries, things that he's heard probably a million times in his life.
Million times today. He's heard it a million times today. I'm gonna try and set myself up here to kind of inquire about our position in relation to the Empire. Just kind of what his preliminary plan is post-convention. What is his goal here at the convention?
So you're just asking him like what he's doing?
What is what's his plan?
And he looks at you curiously, and then kind of like coming to his own conclusion, he says, "Well, my main goal here is pretty straightforward. Get some type of force necessary to defeat the Empire. I hate to say it, but the Alar Kingdom won't last much longer. We've been up against a horde for too long. Our resources are stretched thin. Our manpower is stretched thin. We alone can't kill the Immortal Emperor, but if this convention goes the way that I hope, we will put everything in it to make sure that he dies."
Not entirely sure what I would say in response to that. I guess inquire. I guess I would kind of just finish out with pleasantries and try and head back to Raven.
Cool. Sorry, my thing is all in the way of all the chat. Cool. So Raven, please explain how your story goes.
So almost immediately they can tell like she is exaggerating completely. But by the end of it, she has them rolling in stitches and laughing very hard at the story. of their exploits and how they came about to do this jailbreak.
They're all laughing, and the man that had addressed you, he says, "I don't believe a lick of it, but it's probably the best telling I've ever heard. Can't wait to tell my little boy back home. He'd probably die laughing." So as you finish the telling and everybody's laughing and cheering, Sir Leon comes back to you.
Oh, Sir Leon, come sit, have a seat.
Well, I don't mind if I do. And I would, sit down on the log stool or whatever. With the look on the faces around this fire, I would say you just told them of your jailbreak story.
Yes, and all the glory and everything.
And as soon as you say glory, they all repeat you and they say glory, and they all start laughing.
And all of it 100% fact, if I'm to believe correct.
And then they repeat you and they say fact, and they start laughing again.
And at that, she raises a glass and let's toast.
To lies that tell a good story.
And she'll drink to that.
All right. Drixel, what are you doing?
I think after I'd spent more than the appropriate amount of time out there, I'd kind of like stand up and take a look around, and like nod like an acknowledgement if somebody did notice me and didn't want to come talk to me or whatever. I'd just like nod and head back in slowly, and then kind of like not really looking to walk through a big group of people. I'd probably skirt around back in and try to find the other two.
Okay. So you guys are kind of with the camp. Is there anything anybody else would like to do before the celebration tonight?
Pre-game, of course.
Seems like you guys are already well into that.
The only thing that Raven would like to do, is okay. So none of the people that she's sitting with currently have any of the gray patches, correct?
Nope.
So she's kind of at some point would like to approach that subject, or not really indirectly, but she wants to get a feel for how these guys feel about the gray patches being in their group, like here with them.
So as you ask them about the gray patches, one of them kind of sloshes his drink. He says, "Gray patches, a bunch of sellswords. They're not loyal to anyone, They're just... I feel if the Empire probably paid them a lot of money, they'd probably just switch over to his side, yeah. Why the general even hire them? It just doesn't make sense." Well, and then another one kind of slaps him on the shoulder and says, "Well, to be truthful, we were all ambushed by the bandits. Lost a lot of good men. At least 50 of us died, including the general, and he thinks and says, General's right-hand man. Fell during that battle, poor bastard. But with so many of us down and not knowing what we were going into, we only made sense that we got more people." And the others kind of do a here kind of thing and say, "And of course, they haven't really been bad. Mostly kept to themselves. They didn't drink our stuff either. Had their own booze. Brought nice imperial wine. Now, say what you want about the Imperials. They know how to make a good wine." And the others kind of like do a less enthusiastic here to that.
Imperials being like referencing the Empire.
Yep.
So they have a bunch of alcohol or booze from the Empire.
Yeah.
Would that come off as suspicious to me? As like,
Maybe. I don't know. I guess it depends on how paranoid you are. Having imperial wine is not necessarily that suspicious, since they mostly took the empire. So the thing is that the empire owns most of the continent, and they took over much of the industry of the
gotcha.
continent. So it's
I
like
was just trying to decipher if like them having this thing is kind of like them having some contraband, or if this is common enough that I probably have
like
some.
not having imperial, like having any other type of wine would probably be considered contraband.
Gotcha. Okay, just clarifying.
That's all good.
But outside of that observation, I don't think Leon would have anything.
Cool. So with that being said, if nobody else has anything else that they would like to do, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward till tonight. So you guys partied it up with these guys until the actual party sets up. And again, just like the first time, you've had a lot of firsts today. The first time you've seen the Direwoods. The first time that you've seen this mishmash collection of all the 7 races coming together and coexisting, not necessarily fighting. And when the celebration happens, what most people would assume would happen is that while drunk and intoxicated, all of these races would end up at each other's throats and fights and who's the better this or that. But instead, what you have is a melding of people who start singing songs and exchanging stories from their cultures and the different musical instruments from the Scythian Empire all the way down to the Antethans and so on and so forth, as everybody exchanges different foods and meats from regions you've never seen before and fish that only appear in the seas of specific continents that you've never been to. And you can taste the seasonings of just, you have no idea that these seasonings even existed before, but it makes the meat either super spicy or super sweet, or maybe a combination of the two that has never been really tasted in the places that you've been to. And since most of you are rebels, you've been destitute for a good portion of your adult life now. And having this feast and all of this alcohol and bread put together is, for a few people, maybe a little bit much. But it's definitely a good time. And you guys are crowded with people who know you as the infamous jailbreakers, who know you as Sir Leon, and you go through dancing and music and celebration, but eventually, as the night winds down, you all find yourselves with Silas. And everybody is still, and when I say wind down, I mean the music is much softer, but most people are still awake and drinking or collapsed somewhere. And Silas kind of looks at you all, and he smiles at each one of you and says, "No matter what happens, I want you all to know that I'm glad we all met. You're all very, very kind people, and I know the hero has very good taste in the individuals he chooses for such things." And a woman comes over and hands you all a drink. Each one of you in a glass. And Silas looks at her and says, "Oh, where might these be from?" And she nods over at Disclo, who waves his hands at you guys. And Silas raises his glass and clanks his with yours, or offers his to clank against yours, and says, "Well, to whatever this deliciousness will probably be, and to the hellhole that I'm diving into tomorrow." And he raises glass to cheer with you guys.
With a hearty eye, Sir Leon would drain his tankard.
Yeah, Raven would clink glasses with Silas as well.
Juxa would too.
Cool. And he chugs it down with the best of you. And does anybody want to do anything while the party is happening before the night ends? No?
No.
All right, cool. So with that, the party ends. Where you guys wake up, I'll leave that up to you. Whether you happen to pass out in your tent, outside your tent, in a tree, wherever it happens to be. The party was wild, crazy, definitely one to remember. But what wakes you up is not necessarily the headache, but screaming. People running about, and you can feel a tension that has immediately gripped the entire area as something has definitely occurred.
Before we get too far into the next day, do you mind if we take a 5-minute break real quick?
Yep. It's probably a good place to do that.
All right, cool. I'm back.
All right, dope. Everybody back? Good? Cool. Nick, are you back? I can't tell. All right, Nick is not back. Well, how are you guys enjoying it so far?
It's been pretty fun. Nice to. I like exploring worlds and settings that people have come up with, so just learning about all the stuff that's going on here has been pretty interesting. The Tyrdells, man. I'm infatuated.
Are you enjoying yourself, Karen? With all the fame and glory you've accomplished?
Yes, and being mocked and everything. It's a bit amazing. No, it's good. It's really good. This is probably not Raven's forte, but she's dealing with all the people, all the attention.
I mean, again, like, I guess I would say I encourage you to find other ways to utilize your skills, right? But you don't have to directly interact with people to get information. You could use your stealth skills to overhear information.
That is true. I was thinking about that, but she tried the more direct approach this time because thinking, maybe she could charm them, but that we saw how well that worked.
I mean, you did technically charm them. They were very charmed. Yeah. So the way this is looking, it might end up being like 2 sessions. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm sorry, what was the question? Just got back. Sorry.
Are you okay with it being 2 sessions?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. We'll probably get through about half of this within the next hour.
Okay.
It's possible that we could finish it, but the way things are going, I don't think we will. But that's fine. So now that everybody's back, yeah. So now that everybody's back, let us continue. So you guys all wake up. So let me ask you guys just roundabout, where are you guys? Where did you fall asleep?
I fell asleep in my tent.
I think Sir Leon also probably less dignified than he would like to have been. Made his way away from the fire and stumbled into his tent that he probably didn't even set up. So it's like a half.
So you were sleeping on top of your tent?
Yeah, pretty much.
And what about you, Drixel?
Drixel probably would have fallen asleep like near the fire, probably with like a half empty cup in his, like, now spilt. It's still in his hand.
Okay. So you guys wake up, like I said earlier, and you hear pretty much panic in the camp. Some people screaming, very loud talking, some yelling and arguing coming from across like this direction and that. What do you guys do?
Raven would immediately kind of pull herself together and head towards where the commotion is.
Cool. What about you, Sir Leon?
I think Leon would probably be not far behind Raven, just a little less hastily getting up. Alcohol affects you a little bit different with age.
And what about you, Drixel?
I probably would have like popped up off the ground and grabbed a knife out of my hand, out of one of the sheaths on my side, and like looked around warily, and yeah, it kind of fumbled to put it back in, and then kind of start jogging up to where everything was going on, holding his head.
So, as you guys all kind of come together to where the crowd has kind of circulated, you notice that it is in front of Silas's tent. Now, as you approach, you hear humans kind of like pretty much all the races are pretty much at each other's throats. There's a lot of blame being put on one another, people accusing and people fighting and people trying to keep people apart. And as you get close to the tent, you see the leaders of all the other races kind of watching you. And Felro is the one to step up and say, you all took your sweet time getting here, but it's fine. He's inside. He's waiting for you. And as he says that, the others part, and you're allowed into the tent. And as you guys get inside, the smell is of sickness. It smells like vomit and all the other things that come with being sick. And you can see that Silas, as alive and as well as he looked last night, he looks like he's at death's door right now. As you walk in, his eyes kind of lazily lift to look at each of you, and then kind of as if too heavy to keep open, his eyes like close shut, and then he forces himself to kind of adjust himself. But there seems to be a nurse next to him kind of pressing him down to prevent him from getting too close. And he says, unfortunately, I have bad news. And he looks at each of you and he says, my friends, I have been poisoned. And luckily, I am not prone to being poisoned. I've been poisoned many times, so I happen to have this specific cure, but this is very nasty stuff, and I'm just too weak to lead this thing. And he smiles weakly, and he says, and although you all have your strengths, I would not appoint any of you to be the next speaker. But you are the only three that I trust. Someone did poison me. Not successfully. I am still alive. But someone did try to kill me. Which means someone doesn't want this to succeed. And honestly, it could be anybody. And you can see how truly disappointed he is in that fact. But I will need all three of you to come together on this. It is no longer important to protect me. As I have said, I cannot do my job. They are successful in that. Now, I will need the three of you to become the speakers. You will have to be the ones to do the impossible, I guess. I did it 4 years ago. You will have to do it again now. Get these stupid people to realize that the only way to defeat the Emperor is together. And if they don't come together, get them to realize we will all die. Also, it'd be very helpful if you could figure out who poisoned me. It's not relevant to the poisoning, but it is relevant to helping you succeed in whatever it is that you need to do. If somebody is trying to make this not succeed, they will do other things. They might not see you as a credible threat yet, but they'll go after others. Trust me when I tell you that whoever says that they agree with you now will be in grave danger. And you see him take a really deep breath, as if that much talking was a lot of effort. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Leon would nod.
Yeah, Raven would nod silently as well.
This is on the three of you now. There's a horrible pressure in that. I know. And I feel guilty having to ask you, but like I said, we have traveled together, and I know of your innocence, for the most part. Do this. Make it work. Do whatever you have to do by any means necessary to make this work. This is it. If we can't get everybody on board, there's not a guarantee that things will work out. Now, by tonight, I should be in better spirits. Hopefully. So if you would like to discuss what you've talked about later on tonight, that would probably be best. I've already told the others of my decision. They are not very happy about it, but they will respect you all as the speakers. The meeting was scheduled for this morning. It's been pushed to this afternoon, so you have some time to prepare yourself. Now, I don't want you all to go in blind. And he feebly kind of reaches and grabs a journal from the makeshift nightstand next to him, and he kind of slides it or just pushes it to the end of his bed. This is all of my notes on what I have gathered from the night before. I've talked to as many as I could and gotten their positions. Oddly enough, we are split 3, 3, and 3. 3 of the factions are for us. 3 are against us, and 3 are undecided. I haven't been able to get further in. I plan to do much more talking today than I will be able to do now. So take what I have learned and use it to your own advantage and add to it as you go through. And after that, he starts coughing and then coughing more, and then he's forced to turn over as he starts to vomit, and you can see streaks of red in there, and he kind of pushes his hands out as a nurse kind of ushers you all out of the tent.
I'll take the journal before we go.
As you all stand outside, the crowd has kind of quieted, and they all seem to be waiting for you to say something. What do you tell the crowd?
In a very commanding military tone, Sir Leon, it appears as if we have been delegated to be the new speakers of this convention. Much to our dismay, Silas is not in the best of health and deemed it suitable for us to carry on without him. So in this line, we shall do our best at striding for the ultimate goal of the convention.
And while he's talking, Raven is looking at the leaders and seeing their faces as he's saying this, trying to read them.
Drixel, do you say anything?
No.
Okay. So, the crowd around you, they seem to stir a bit, and some of them seem pacified. and they start to talk about him being sick. But then you see one of his guards push forward, and they say, "Bullshit! I saw him yesterday, and he looked in good health. Was he poisoned? Is he dead?"
Now, I wouldn't want to spread rumors and falsities in the convention. We have not come to a proper conclusion on the cause or effect of what has happened in the last few hours to our speaker. Just know that he is on his way to recovery in the quickest means possible.
And the man was going to speak again, but you see Felro kind of step up beside you, and he kind of waves his hand, and he says, "Enough, enough, enough. Listen. Silas had too much to drink, as all of us did, and he had too much weird food that the Scythians made." And you hear a few chuckles from the crowd. "He's probably just sick, just like most of us should be, if not for the gods' blessing upon us. Now, let's not get too carried away. Silas will definitely be up in the next few days, but he has appointed these three to be his speaker. Let's not be rude. Now, I'm sure everybody has things to do. Be gone." And not necessarily pacified, but convinced, the crowd disperses. And Felro smiles, and there's something unsettling about it as he looks at you. And he says, "Sir Leon, was it? I don't think we've had the pleasure." And he offers his hand to you.
Reaching out my hand in mimicry, really. I shake his hand or whatever the traditional greeting is, and likewise, I've heard of you, but have yet to make your acquaintance. The pleasure is mine.
And he says, "Oh, I hope you've only heard the best of things."
And Leon would laugh. Unfortunately, that is not how rumors work, as you would probably know.
Ha! I do spread only the best rumors about myself, although some of them aren't necessarily that great. But, come, there's much to discuss, many things to go over, and I'm sure you'll see just how true most of those rumors are in the foreseeable future. And as the others kind of lead you back to the big tent, Felro kind of stops and looks at you all. And he says, "Before we go inside, I would like it to be known that I am on your side, and I hope you'll consider me an ally for things to come." And he smiles, and there's something like a playfulness in it, like he knows something that you don't know. And without waiting for you to respond, he steps inside the tent after everybody else. So, like I said, you guys have till the afternoon. Everybody's going inside the tent to kind of prepare themselves. Is there anything you guys would like to do before you go inside?
I'd like to look through the journal and see his notes. Look like to find out what you said there was 3, 3, and 3. Maybe to get an idea who those were.
Yep. That's probably too much. So the 3 that you guys see is the people who are for, or who he has deemed to be for, is Olo of the Terradel Deep Dweller caste, Disclo of the Alar Kingdom, and Felro, who he has marked down as the Anteathan Prince. The people who are against is the Fira Banking Clan Guildmaster, Synis. There's an Eldari prime voice, Tarma, and a Cedian in the Cedian seer Tetra. And the people who are undecided is the Cedian speaker, Siora, the Abori Kai Direwood chieftain Nisus, and the human prince Jasper of the Voltoran kingdom.
As I'm kind of looking at this journal over her shoulder, maybe letting her point these things out to me as she's reading them. And I turn to Driscoll. Perhaps it would be easier to align those who are undecided to our cause rather than those who are against it first.
Agreed. I don't think we'll have much luck with the Seers group anyway.
To be honest, I really don't want to go back to that.
Unfortunately, the speaker's one of the undecided, and I don't expect it would have much better luck there.
No, I don't suppose that would be the case.
But the other three, the other two, perhaps wouldn't be a bad idea to try to sway. Unfortunately, I'd like to trust Silas's judgment. And what little I do know of Felro, I don't see how. I'd like to not say I trust him, but believe his position to be true. But as I said earlier or yesterday, he is well, he's not he doesn't have the most scruples of in a man that I've met before.
I will take your wise counsel justly when dealing with him. For though my limited interaction with him, I have every inclination that you are correct.
So, what would you guys like to do?
First, I guess, actually, anybody else have any ideas before I start talking again?
I'm thinking that maybe we should talk to each of the three undecided. I like that plan. And what if we, maybe we just need to tackle it in a different way? Like, I think the speakers might actually have a better, we might have a better reception with them than we did with the seer, knowing that now, the seer was actually against this whole thing to begin with. So maybe that was part of the issue there, and maybe we would have better luck talking to the speaker, for one. Definitely the human, we should be able to approach him. And I don't know anything about the Odakai, so I'll leave that to somebody else.
It may be worth, in the three factions that we are have deemed undecided, to find out what would potentially motivate them to do this and what are their apprehensions to doing this, and see if we can kind of negotiate those waters so they lean more towards our side. So maybe the prince first. Humans seem to be fairly easygoing as compared to some of the others. So we can go talk to Prince Jasper and see why he is withholding his I don't know the word.
Support?
Yeah, withholding his support.
I agree.
See if we can ruse him to our side.
All right. So I'm hearing that you guys want to go talk to Prince Jasper?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, cool. So you guys make your way over to the Valtoran camp. And you see kind of all the guards kind of on edge, more so than they were yesterday. And as you approach, they immediately put their hands out and say, "Halt! What are you here for?"
We come on behalf of the convention. As honorary speakers, we wish to speak with Prince Jasper in regards to the convention.
And you see one of the other guards slap him, and he says, "Hey, those are the speakers that were just appointed this morning. Let them through." "Sorry about that, speakers. Not all of us got the word, but it's all right. You're all free to come in."
And Sir Leon would kind of, no, it's quite all right. We can't expect everyone to know everything now, should we? That would just be unfair. You are doing great work guarding your prince. Carry on.
You're all very gracious, and they let you all through into the tent. And as you guys walk in, you see that the tent is very plain for what a prince's tent should be. There's not like a giant bed, just like a very makeshift cot. Again, the basic accoutrements, but nothing royal looking. It's not like they brought like a carpet of red velvet and all those nice things that princes typically have. It seems like he's living pretty poor. And this happens to be the 15-year-old that you all saw earlier. And as you all come, he stands to attention and says, "Ah, the new speakers. I assumed that you would go to the others first, but I guess it does make sense to come to me now. Please, have a seat." And he realizes that there are no chairs and says, "Or I guess standing is fine too. How can I help you?" And he says, "Wait, sorry. Introductions are probably necessary. Yes. I am Prince Jasper of the Valtoran Kingdom. And you are?"
I am Sir Leon Malferno, and these are my fellow speakers, Raven and Drixel. We have recently been appointed in the stead of Silas, who was taken ill this morning.
Yes. I rather like Silas. It's very unfortunate to his passing. I hope he makes a full recovery, but I'm no longer so sure this conference can go the way that we wanted to now that he is in his disposition. No offense, obviously, to you and your abilities.
None taken.
Many have great respect for Silas. He was the one who orchestrated the first convention and managed to get as much power as he could to go out with the hero. Without Silas, there would be no failed rebellion. So now we have to rely on people who we do not know, and that makes a lot of us paranoid.
Rightfully so, and that is actually why we were here, in order to make way with Silas's plan for us 4 races coming together in opposition of the Empire. I believe it would be best for the 3 of us to make our rounds and become more fluent with the ways of the 9 factions presented here. And that's what brings us to you, Prince Jasper. It had appeared to Silas that you were indifferent to the cause, not for or against. Is this true?
No. Well, yes, but no. I am for the cause, and if it can work, I would like to help, but it doesn't seem like it will. And if that is the case, I cannot commit my men to simply die for a cause. The failed rebellion is a great story and a good motivator, but it is a failed rebellion. I can't send my men to another failed rebellion.
You speak with wisdom well beyond your years, my prince. For at a glance, your youth could be mistaken as naivety, but I see that I was mistaken in that regard. I understand your plights and your apprehension to commitment to this plan, but it is that apprehension that caused the rebellion to fail. These are trying times, and in trying times, we must give it all or give nothing. And those who give nothing, well, they are on par with those we are against.
All right. Why don't you make a negotiation check? And I will give you 2 boost die. And the difficulty will be a 2.
Okay, so this is the first die roll I've ever done. Doing negotiation. So I get 2 boosts, which is the 2 blue ones.
Yep.
And then you said it was a difficulty of 2, so 2 purple ones.
Yep.
And then how do I determine how many green ones I have?
So do you have any skill in negotiation?
I have 1 rank.
Okay. And what is the skill that's back to that? Is it charisma?
Presence. It's presence.
Presence.
Right.
Yeah.
What is your presence?
My presence is 3.
3? Okay, so you're gonna get 3 green die, and you're gonna upgrade one of those to a yellow die.
All right. So my 2 green die cancel out the 2 purple, and that just leaves me with the yellow and 2 blue to roll.
No, you still roll them all.
So you roll the 2 purple.
Oh,
you roll all of them.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Symbols. Sorry about this.
It's all good. Are you just looking up what the symbols are?
Yeah.
So the X's are failures, the stars are successes, the arrows are advantage.
All right. So I got an X and a circle with lines in it for one of the purple dice.
So that is threat, and that cancels out advantage.
Okay. So and then I got just a threat on my other one. Here, let me see if I can.
So do you have more threats than you have advantage?
Screen share this if I can. Can you see those?
Nice. Where's the purple ones? Nice.
So I've got my.
Yep. So it looks like you have. Can you try to get them all in the same picture?
Yeah. Here.
All right. Cool. So you have 1 advantage left over, and it looks like you have 2 successes.
Okay.
3 successes actually. So yeah, you have 3 successes and 1 advantage. So you did a very good job. Pretty good roll. So just so you know for future, the way it works is that if you have any of the stars left over, so pretty much if you have more stars than you do the X's, you succeed.
Okay.
If you have more threats than you do advantage, then something really bad happens either way. If you have more arrows than you do the threat symbols, then something good happens regardless if you fail or succeed. And if you have more X's than you do successes, then you failed.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't recognize any of this.
No, it's all good. The first game is always hard with the symbols. I had to look it up a lot when we first played. But yeah, so you succeeded. So the way this is going to work, so with the bigger guys, you're not going to be able to convince them with a simple argument because obviously it's a lot more complex than that. So each of these guys has a strain threshold, and what you're doing is you're combating against their strain threshold. So whenever you succeed, you'll be able to lower their strain down almost like you're attacking them verbally. So you're kind of attacking their position. So you got 3 successes. So you lowered his thing down to you pretty much got 3 strain against him.
Okay.
So very good. But anyway, so you say all that, and he looks at you, and like it's almost like for a second his face is kind of open, and you can see that he's still kind of a child trying to understand what it's like to be a prince, but then closes off immediately into a mask. And so actually, here's a question for you. You did gain advantage. Would you like to learn something about him with that advantage? Would you like to spend that advantage to learn something about him?
Yeah, for sure. Could I spend it to maybe ask him, as to, I mean, unless this is already public knowledge, why he, a boy of 15 would have been sent in the place of someone older or more experienced in councils of war?
His is so this is somewhat public knowledge. He's the only royal left of the Voltoran kingdom. His entire family was killed. He was smuggled out, and there's somewhat still like those who are loyal. Pretty much now there are 2 different groups. The Empire pretty much has a puppet on the throne of the Voltoran kingdom, and he is the actual true prince. So there's somewhat like internal civil war going on in that country right now, where if you side with the true royalty, you're with him, and if you side with the Empire, you side with them. Problem is that the Empire technically saved the Voltoran kingdom from the non-human threats, so a lot of people still kind of side with the Empire regardless.
Okay.
But yeah, he like his whole family is dead. He's pretty much all he has left. So he had to kind of assume the role of leadership at 13.
Does he have any like right-hand advisors or people that like would be teaching him this process?
He has like a few generals who are still around. But again, a lot of people have been picked off in a few years. So now it's just like a lot of kind of fanatic followers of his.
Okay. I'm kind of just finishing that conversation out, or that bit of dialogue rather, gazing at each one of them, kind of, picking up on the hierarchy of this prince's court.
Yeah. So he does anybody else want to say anything? Drixel or Raven?
I think Drixel would kind of stand there like with his arms crossed like to his full height for the majority of the conversation. And then after that point, he'd kind of like glance around and think out loud, like to him, but still kind of a thought to himself. What like how many men do you have that you're you think you might be able to gain your country back yourself without the help of this alliance?
Jasper shakes his head and he says, "We're not trying to gain our country back. We're trying to survive. We have a very small stronghold that the people who are true Voltorans claim right now. A very sliver of territory that we have left. It's all we can do to hold out. If we commit to this, we commit with everything that we have, and we will lose that territory. But if we kill the Empire, or kill the Emperor, which shatters the Empire, it won't matter. We'll come back and claim what's ours. But if this is just going to be another failed rebellion, I can't send men to die to give up all that we fought for. It's not the right thing to do. My father wouldn't have done it.
He'd get like a little upset at this point and say, then, how long can you hold what you have? Like, what do you have that you expect you might be able to hold on to? There are going to be people fighting, and the less allies we have together, then the less allies there will be for you when you need them. Because believe the Empire will come for what you have now.
They already are coming for what we have now. You think that I'm ignorant, that I don't know what happens beyond my own territory, and if that were the case, I wouldn't be here. Trust me. The best thing for me to do right now is to see how things play out. There are 2 more days, and he looks at you, Sir Leon. I will take what you have said under advisement, but I cannot commit now. Right now, there are too many variables. Too many are not invested. If the Scythians won't put their forces in, what good are we against Magisters? My men are all non-favored. None of us have magical talent. That automatically puts us at a huge disadvantage. And if the Fira don't give us much money to support ourselves, how are we supposed to trade with smugglers to get any of the slugs and launchers that we need to pose a counter threat? It is a foolish, idealist perspective that you're pulling from to think that a leader should engage in a battle simply because he cannot win the battle he's fighting now. If we stay, we'll eventually die. But if we go with you, the way things are now, we will assuredly die.
Leon, trying to kind of simmer down the conversation. Well, with what has been said, I think it best you pay attention to what happens in this council, and at the end, we will reconvene and hopefully come to an agreement of some sorts.
Yes.
I implore you to think about what I have said, and though it may not have been the nicest to hear, also think about what Driscoll has said, for he does not mean to bully your actions, as he means to enlighten you to the things that may or may not come. And with that, I think Sir Leon would kind of bow and prepare to take his leave.
And he kind of nods to you, and he nods to Drixel, and he says, I understand. Regardless of the outcome, I hope that your endeavor is successful, with or without my support.
I thank you, my prince. And with that, I think I would turn to leave.
All right. So, what are you guys up to now?
Well, it would appear as if the prince is fearful for his people, which, can't really blame the guy.
I think if we could get the Scythians on board, then we would have a much better chance of getting him on board.
I think at the mention of getting Scythians on board, there'd be like a shudder that goes through Sir Leon. Yes, a task that will be. And as much as I would like to dive into that, perhaps speaking with the, it was the Arbor Kai, I believe, Albari Kai.
Perhaps anybody other than them.
Yeah. Actually, can we talk to the people that are like a strong opposition to us? They might be a little bit more inclined to listen.
All right, so you guys want to go talk to the Albari Kai?
Yeah.
All right. So, as you kind of wander the camp, it becomes apparent that the Abori Kai are the only ones that don't actually have a camp set up. There's not like an Abori Kai thing.
They don't
anywhere.
really need tents.
Yeah. But as you're looking for them, it seems like they have somehow found you. And the Abori Kai are very striking in their figure, in the sense that they are just as tall as the Cedians, if not sometimes taller. But the thing that sets them apart from most of the other races is that they are made from forest stuff. Their bodies are made of uh, what do you call that? Bark and wood and twigs, and their hairs are just bushels of leaves. And their faces are not true faces, but somewhat wooden masks that have some kind of forever sketched expression onto it. And although they walk bipedal, they are also shapeshifters. So as they move, their body kind of fluidly merges with what they see around them, in and out, almost like a liquid. And as they see things, like the random creatures that other people have brought, you can see some children morph into something similar to it, but still alien almost. Almost like they don't necessarily understand living creatures, but like to imitate them. So as they approach you, you see that their height kind of shrinks to around your level, and they kind of look at you curiously. And the one in the center, whose form seems to be the most sturdy out of those around him, looks at you questioningly.
What was his name again? It was like Tristan?
Nisus.
Nisus. Okay. Is that who has approached us? Do we know?
You assume so.
Okay. Without assuming that, I think my character would greetings, Aborikai. To whom to which I speak?
And the Abori Kai kind of looks at you curiously, and then he kind of leans down, or you assume he leans down as his head almost like stretches towards you. And although again his mask, the mouth of it doesn't move, but you hear words echoing in your brain. And he says, "Child, who are you?" And his head kind of moves to the side as if he's like inspecting you. And he says, "Ah, a man child. Leon, is it? Hmm. They call me Nisus. What is it that you want?"
Leon's kind of like straightening up his posture as he's kind of being inspected, and maybe even laughing a little bit. Man child, I haven't been referred to a child in many years, though I will take the compliment if it was deemed as much.
And Nisus kind of tilts his head, and he says, "How old is your character?"
I'd say he's probably like 41.
And he says, "Ah, but it's only been what, 20 so years, maybe 30 since you've been called such. Much a child."
In terms of your lifespans, I could see how that would be the case, but the fires inside us humans grow and burn out much more quickly.
"Ah, fire you speak." And he kind of raises his head and looks beyond the camp out towards the edge. "Yes, you humans do love fire, don't you?"
And kind of like seeing like what he said may have come across as like maybe even derogatory to the Aborikai. He got simply a means of expression.
And the Aborikai kind of tilts his head to the other side and says, "Do humans not like fire?"
I suppose not more so than any other when coming in direct contact with it, but it does serve its uses.
Yes. Yes, it does. Now, you were looking for me. Here I am.
Well, Nisus. Does he have a title? You said the Dire Chieftain or something?
Yep, he's the Direwood chieftain.
Direwood Chieftain Nisus, we beseech you on the grounds of the speaker and the motivations of the convention. Silas was...
Words. Be more direct.
As you wish. It appears as if Silas found you to be undecided in the terms of the convention, and I've come to inquire as to why.
Undecided is the wrong word. The word you search for is unconcerned. We have sat in these woods for thousands of years, and you, and he looks around, all of them have tried to take these woods from us and have failed. Yet you claim that this one will succeed. I'm intrigued, but not convinced.
Though I do not know the nuances of the dire forest, I can tell you that where I am from, the small kingdom of blank, thought ourselves well defended, but in the wake of Magistars, there's very little that you can do to stop the magical ferocity that flies with them. We spoke of fire but a moment ago, and I can assure you that they bring more than just fire. They bring ash and smoke, corruption. And though you hide here in your forest now, I can guarantee that this will be the last time.
Mm. So why don't you roll negotiation? But this time I would like you to add a black die.
Okay. Kind of the same getup as before, just no blue.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I got 3 X's, 1 arrow, so I have 2 arrows, so I have 1 failure, 1 threat, and what is the star on the yellow one?
The star's a success, so you'd put that against the failures.
Gotcha. And the arrows are advantage then.
Yep.
Right.
All right, so I have 1 advantage and 1 failure.
Okay. What would you like to spend your advantage on? Would you like to learn a trait about him?
Is there any other things I can do with it?
So within the context of the social encounter, you can use it to add a boost die to your next active check, and that's pretty much it. So you can either add a boost die to somebody else's check who might want to roll against him, or to learn something about him.
Could I maybe learn what might entice him to join the fray?
I think that might be too much.
Okay.
But I will give you... How about this? I will give you what gave you a black die.
Okay.
So, one of his strengths is that he's very courageous and brave, and you called him a coward. But yeah. So he bristles, and those around him, you hear like the clicking of like what would sound like wind brushing through the trees in the dark, and the branches kind of rubbing against each other as he bristles in anger. And he looks at you, his head pulling back, and he grows in size. And he says, "How dare you? I have survived long before you and your mortal beings have even put breath upon your mother's lips. How dare you? This man, this mortal baby you call the Immortal Emperor, has already tried to breach the wood wall and has failed time and time again. His fire, his steel, his corruption, they do not breach the wood. Yet you would dare say that I cower here. I cower here no more than you and your mortal men cower in your homes. This is my home. This is where I live. I do not need to cower here if I exist here. I have no interest in your lands. I have no interest in your strife. Now, what I am curious about, and why I have agreed to hold such a meeting, is because I do not often have guests, and it seems you all have information on this new foe that may prove me otherwise. But if you wish to insult me, you will not find an ally in me this day." And with that, he just continues onward.
Just as he's about to leave, "You mistake an insult for a motivation. I do not mean to demean you. I merely mean to provoke you in the right way. They are our enemy here, and whether you realize that or not is on you. But I know that the sands of time have already begun to pour, and they have not begun to pour for you."
And he looks over his shoulder, or more accurately, his head kind of twists and turns backwards to look at you. And he says, "The speaker, Silas. I very much liked him. Was it the sands of time that poisoned him? Was it the Imperial Army, my enemy, that has struck him in this place? Or is it one of my friends, who I am to ally with, who has drugged him?" And he continues to walk away.
I would turn to the group. "Well, that went about as well as the Scythians did."
Also, I forgot to say this. Since you failed your attempt to negotiate with him, you receive 2 strain.
Okay.
All right. So, what would you guys like to do next? Would you guys like to head to the tent? I think it's probably around 12 at this point. Would you guys like to head to the tent, or would you like to catch one more person before you go?
You know, it's not popular, but I think we probably really should talk to the speaker before we go to, the Scythian speaker before we go into the big tent proper.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably about as much as I'll have time to get through today. But let's do it.
All right. That's fine. I actually have to leave pretty soon myself. So this will be the last thing we do, and then we'll close up, and we'll talk about what we're going to do after this. All right. So you guys head over to the speaker's camp. And as you do so, it seems like the guards recognize you and have been expecting you. And
Sorry, I just wanted to mention to Sir Leon that I would tell him to be very respectful of his place being in male.
I just posted in the chat. Why are you guys letting me talk so much?
I actually, I probably should have, like, I almost spoke up when you started addressing the Abori Kai, because my character's background is that he had spent some time among them, but you kind of like forged head on into it, and I thought it was entertaining, so I just let it go.
All right.
But
Driscoll's willing to let me walk under a bus.
no, them, and my character doesn't know that their customs are the same. Like, I didn't stay in this wood in particular, so I don't know how close knit the Abori Kai are from place to place.
I think, like, post that conversation and kind of having an idea of Drixel's background with that, I would turn to you and be like, next time, you're doing the talking, so I don't insert my foot in my mouth. Yeah.
Fair enough. Though I think this time, perhaps we should leave it to the woman.
I think that would probably be a good idea.
So, you guys go in. Like I said, they were expecting you. So without preamble, they allow you in, and then almost like an insistence of you to hurry, without them actually moving or telling you so. And you guys find yourself in front of the speaker's tent. What do you guys do?
I think at this point, Raven would just look at the other two, and she's kind of indicate that she's going to go through into the tent, and she's just kind of looking at Drixel to see if we're okay with that.
Yeah, I think what I'd do is just make an announcement before we enter the tent that we've arrived, and I would start by introducing Raven as a jailbreaker, and then myself and Leon lastly.
You would just say this outside the tent?
Yeah, and request permission to enter.
So halfway through your spiel about like who you are, you hear, "Oh, come in, come out. We don't have much time."
And at that, Raven would definitely enter the tent.
So kind of in a very interesting position. The tent itself is kind of draped with all kinds of Firan fabrics, all very lavish and lush, of different colors, but mostly of like vibrant purples and reds and pinks. And as you come in, she motions for you all to sit in one of these unusual chairs that she's positioned around herself. Come, sit. We have much to discuss.
And what was her name again?
Siora.
Siora. Honored. So Raven would sit down, and she's like, "Honored speaker, Siora. We've come to you to ask your help in making this conference and everything go well. And where do you stand? How can we get you to help us?"
And she looks at you closely and says, "I think you know where I stand. Is that not why you're here?"
That is true. What can we do to help you? Not help you. What can we do to have you help us in this?
I think you need to make it more convincing. Right now, there just is no reason. But I want to help you. I do, honestly. But how to explain this? I'm in a very, how would your people say it, awkward position. On one hand, I know that the power of the Immortal Emperor is a real thing. I have seen it myself, and I have seen what he can do. But my sisters have not. And although he has taken his forces overseas and is doing battle with us in the homeland, they consider that to be much more of a threat than him here. They would prefer that we remain where we are and bunker down. There's somewhat of a no man's land going on between us right now. No territory gained, no territory lost. Which is a bit insulting, if I do say so myself. But that's neither here nor there. What I can tell you is this. My sister, Tetra, she is the seer here. I cannot necessarily do anything as brash as to accept your claim without being assured that this is what is necessary for the betterment of Scythian society. What I have here now is a human, an Antithan, and a Teradel faction who says that they want to go and kill the Immortal Emperor. Now, let us be honest with each other. Do you think that the three of them together would be successful?
Juxa would notion to speak up and then say, I don't think the council would be being held if anyone believed that they could do it alone.
And
of course they will try.
Narrows her eyes at you. And she says, "Who are you?"
And I hesitate to announce myself properly, and I say, my name is Druxel. I don't have a name beyond that. I've lost the right to claim it.
You lost the right to claim it, or you don't want to say it?
I was of House Usanther.
A very dishonored house of late.
I don't say it. I didn't hesitate to say my name out of embarrassment for my house, but out of disgrace on my own name, to not bring further disgrace to the house. I don't claim to be a member of them.
Now, Mr. Druxel of Not House Usanther, I will ask you the question that I have asked her. Do you think a Teradel, a human, and an Antithan strike force is enough to bring down the Immortal Emperor?
I don't.
Then why would the Scythians join a group that would fail? How could I tell my Empress that we are joining a strike force that is sure to fail? Does that sound like it would progress Scythian kind?
What I can say is that should they fail, their territories will become the territories of the Empire. Their people will become people of the Empire. The war will continue with the Scythian Empire. And
the war is already happening with the Scythian Empire.
I understand. And where it stands
now. And they already
now,
own the entirety of the continent. There is no territory that the Teradels own here. There is no territory that the humans control. They are resistance fighters. Do you know what a resistance fighter is? Yes. They are the oppressed. They do not actually hold power. They are fighting to overthrow a power. Do you understand the difference?
Yes. But
Good.
as they are now, they are still an annoyance, if nothing else, to the Empire. The Empire is still using their resources, what small percentage they may be, in dealing with that, with the rebellion. If the rebellion fails, the Empire can concentrate its forces better. If you're at a standstill now, what happens when they have more?
May I ask you a question? Do you know how much of the Empire's forces are focused on the Scythian continent?
I know it's a good majority of them. I'm well
No.
aware of the power of the Scythian Empire.
He has put so much forces there that we have had to withdraw our forces from the other continents just to keep him at bay. Do you really think your resistance is that much of an annoyance if he has put so much of his force to bear there? The whole point of this conference is that he is weak here. He doesn't even see you as a credible threat to leave even a minuscule amount of forces here. He has left himself open to attack because he sees no enemies. Now, someone like that is confident. And someone who has conquered an entire continent is more than confident. They are clever. So, let's say we give you forces. We withdraw the minuscule amount of forces we can to send to you to make sure that your strike force is successful. Because the 3 forces that are accompanying us are so weak, we have to assign forces strong enough to make sure it would be successful. What happens if it fails and we lose those people? See, I'm in a bit of a pickle. How do I explain this to my Empress? How do I get the seer to agree that this is the correct course of action? I personally believe that what you are doing here is the best approach. Cut the head off of the snake, as they say. Kill the Emperor, his empire collapses. We reclaim our continent. This continent fractures into 1 billion pieces. And we can come here and claim some of the scraps. Just like it was before. But it is much more difficult when my seer doesn't see things that way. I'm afraid that convincing me is not what you need to do. Convincing Tetra, now that is the challenge.
I think just now, after this verbal bout, Sir Leon would speaker, if I may. Perhaps there's tricks to the trade in terms of dealing with the seer.
My trick is to just let her yell at you until she tires herself out, and then to tell her otherwise. But I am also a high matriarch myself, so she cannot actually kill me. Well, you are a speaker, so maybe she wouldn't kill you off the bat, but...
Well, she's already degraded me, so I'm already on the right path. Just gotta let her tire herself out.
We never met her.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we met her guard. Sorry, her guard belittled me.
And she laughs and says, "Oh, honey, that is nothing compared to what Tetra will do to you." But what I suggest is that you do not talk to her directly. Tetra will not respond to your words. Show her that this is the best way. Give her no room to argue. Give her no room to say that it won't work. Show her. And then you'll be successful. All you really need is to make a strike force that without the Scythians will be successful. Because here's the problem. If you are successful and the Scythians are not involved, well, that puts us at a disadvantage in future conflicts. So we will have to be involved if it will be successful without us. Make that a possibility.
Drixel would nod and not smile outwardly, but perhaps like smirk a little and well, not smirk, but like grin just slightly and say, Speaker Ciora, thank you for your wise counsel. And
Yes, it was quite entertaining.
and for your time.
You were like the little wormlings I used to teach back when I was younger. You have much learning to do, but it's okay. I look forward to your continued entertainment. I wish success upon all of us. Is there anything else you guys would like to say before you leave? No?
Definitely just thank her for her time. Thank her for seeing us.
All right.
And we will speak again.
So we will go ahead and end this with, I guess, the thing being that when we come back, we will actually have the first council session. But yeah, thanks everybody who watched this. If there was anybody who watched this, I don't know. Anybody who watches this in the future, thank you too. So like I said earlier, I'm the Faulty GM. This is out of character. Anybody want to give an outro? Please do so. So Baron, if you will. Nope, Baron's like, I don't care.
I dropped my YouTube channel in the beginning. It gets redundant after a certain point.
All right. So if nobody else wants anything to say, it's all good. We will see you guys next time. Peace.